It's time to go rogue. Hello and welcome to RotD Review of the Day, and today we're going to be taking a look at the creature feature from Down Under, Rogue, from 2007. And I have issued an announcement video just preceding this review that is going over some changes to the category and the scoring system that have taken place. If you want to know why this is, please watch that video. Otherwise, here's the Cliff's Notes version. Instead of the 5 different categories that we've been having, which is plot, intent, acting, technical, and fear quotient, I am ditching the fear quotient. It will now just be plot, intent, acting, and technical. And each one is going to be worth 25 points instead of 20. So this is a way that if a movie is trying to be scary, and if it succeeds or not, then it's going to wind up affecting the intent score. If a movie isn't trying to be scary, trying to be campy, funny, whatever, it's still going to affect the intent score. It's hopefully going to be a little bit more balanced. But that's enough of that. Watch the announcement video if you want to know more. Other than that, moving on to the review of Rogue. Now, I had heard about this movie for a long time, and I don't know why, but it has taken me a little while to get around to it. And I have nothing against creature features. I love them. Big animal movies, they hold a soft spot in my heart. I do love them. And I heard that this one made a lot of people's, top 10 lists of various sorts, horror of all time even. And having seen it now, here's what I can say about it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I am glad that I watched it, and I also don't get the hype. To be perfectly brutally honest, I don't get it. I am a fan of this director, Greg McLean. I loved the Wolf Creek series. I sort of enjoyed The Darkness. And I'm not going to say that this is a misstep. I'm just going to say that this was not of the Greg McLean quality caliber I'm used to. And you know what? Let's dive into it. Let's get into why. So, bear with me. This is a unique moment for me. Let's get into the categories. As always, from here on out, 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. And the first category is plot. And the plot of this one is a tourist outback, crocodile look-see boating trip is happening with a group of tourists and a boat captain, and it's kind of a flat, open side boat for tourists to go along and look at the pretty scenery and snap pictures of crocodiles and so forth. And things go wrong. A big crocodile, and not an obscenely big crocodile. This was definitely not a kaiju movie. This was simply, if this crocodile had existed in the real world, I don't think anybody really would have blown the lid off of the world of biology and zoology and paleontology or anything like that. It would have made some interesting newspaper clippings, and that's probably about it. Big, just not world-changing big. And I don't know. I thought that the plot of this followed a fairly familiar format. It wasn't a whole lot new about it. The characters were fairly varied, and some of them for me worked, some didn't. Ultimately, where I wound up with this was kind of in a enjoyable but meh category. So I gave the plot 8 out of 25 points. The intent, which in my mind, the intent was to have a fun, a little bit, brutal, man against nature, against all odds kind of movie with all these various tourists and, several of them being nothing more than meal times for the big monster and to have a fun big monster on the screen. And in that regard, I thought it actually succeeded fairly well. Some of the characters I felt like were just really one-dimensional, didn't really do it for me, and I feel like there could have been more depth, there could have been more impact, there could have been even more fun with more fleshed out characters. So I gave the intent 15 out of 25 points. The acting, this is something that was actually a little bit difficult for me because, like I said earlier, some of the characters worked and some of them didn't. I thought the boat captain worked. I thought the primary American tourist worked. There was a character of a widower, and I really appreciated how they tackled this one and they introduced this character. It wasn't broadcasting the fact that he was a widower over a megaphone. It was simply a quiet, restrained moment of nonverbal interaction, and I really thought that was handled very well. So, and honestly, the way the acting was done on that, it kind of broke my heart a little. I thought it was pretty good. So, but then also there were some characters that just didn't, that were just cardboard cutouts. The acting seemed to be a bit phoned in by them, and if they happened to be winding up down the gullet of a crocodile, I was pretty happy about that. So, all told, all balancing everything out, I gave the acting 13 out of 25 points. And lastly, we get into the technical category, and this would have been getting higher than it did if it weren't for a pretty major critical issue for me. And it would have been getting higher because, honestly, they were pretty good. The special effects worked, the creature effects worked, the blood effects worked, a lot of the finer details of this worked. The filming of the Australian outback, I think, was beautiful. I reviewed a film not too long ago called Ghost House, and it was set in Thailand, and I gave it marks down because you had such a gorgeous setting of this beautiful country, and you really don't capitalize on it. I thought that was a bit of a crime. Rogue did not make that mistake. It was beautiful. It showed the majestic nature of the Australian outback, and so some technical points there. However, I thought there were plenty of moments, especially towards the beginning, the first act at least, if we can call it that when we had a close-up of a person, it felt like, I don't know why this is. It may have been the focal point of the camera. It may have been the color saturation. It may have been something, but something was very off about it. And what I have a feeling it was reshoots or shots that happened for one reason or another in front of a green screen. And it felt very off. And usually I have a little bit of a particular eye about those kind of things. I do notice a change in movement speeds, relative to the camera speeds. But this was a situation where I was watching this with my friends, and they, nothing against them, but they more pick up on the broad strokes of movies than the finer details than I do. And even they were pointing it out, saying that is honestly really distracting even. So I have to give marks down for the technical points on that, whether or not it was reshoots and it was done in post-production, or it was an actual shot and it was happening in front of the camera. Either way, somebody should have caught it and somebody should have fixed it. So 16 out of 25 points for the technical. And that gives us a total of 52 points for Rogue. Again, I honestly would recommend this. I have really nothing against it. There's no points of this that I would say would dissuade me from, saying, go ahead. I think that this is worth it. It's a fun, creature-filled romp, and that's about it. As far as the hype of people calling it, my top 10 of all horror, I still maintain I don't get it, but this is just me, in my opinion. So that should about do it for this review. I'm going to be covering a lot more of the spoiler stuff in the deep dive discussion video that will accompany this. Other than that, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.